Welcome to the latest episode of Beyond Insights on Ethical Considerations in AI-Based Recruitment, in conversation with Sharad Seth, CTO and Advisory Board Member, VBeyond Corporation. How companies can approach the challenge of ensuring that AI-based recruitment tools are fair and unbiased.
There are a few ways in which bias can be mitigated. I think the most logical way to ensure bias mitigation is to catch the problem at the very first step, which is basically when the model is being trained. So, by pre-processing the training data, we can ensure that there is no bias even before the training starts. How is this done? This is usually done by balancing the data so that it represents all the groups that are being used to train the data. There's another way to mitigate bias, and that is by defining fairness upfront and ensuring that the AI system is trained to achieve that objective as well, along with the usual stated objective, which could be classification or prediction or whatever the objective of the AI model is. Another very important thing to be kept in mind is the team structure, the softer side of things here. So you need to employ a diverse team of developers, business analysts, machine learning engineers, so that different perspectives and experiences are brought into the training process as well as the testing process. And finally, I think there is one more technicality that needs to be kept in mind. Even if, after all your efforts, you remove the race or gender variable from the data set, AI models still tend to search for proxies for those variables. Let me give an example. Suppose we have a data set in which women had a lower approval rate for loans, right? And this model is then applied to a training data which consists of high school teachers. Now, most of these high school teachers will then be predicted to have a lower rate of loan approval. Why? Simply because high school teachers mostly are female. Now, this is obviously not in line with reality. And this is how bias creeps into an AI model. If we continue with this example, then a fairness objective in this case of bank lending might be that the loan approval rate for women should be in line with the proportion of women in the community, right? And the AI model should now be trained with this additional constraint of achieving the fairness objective as well. As I said earlier, in addition to the usual objectives that the model would have. If I were to summarize this, basically, to remove biases, essentially you need team members or at least one such leader in the team who completely understands the business aspects, the maths, the science, and the intricacies also of how AI models actually behave. I think if you combine these methods, then AI models can be trained or customized to make sure that they are not carrying the biases that usually we find in the data that is used to being trained there.
How to maintain transparency with both clients and candidates when utilizing AI in recruitment process.
The use of AI in recruitment should be transparent and clearly communicated. I think both clients and candidates need to be proactively informed about possible uses of AI in the entire recruitment process, including actual scenarios where AI is being used. So, for example, at VBeyond, when we conduct aptitude tests or coding interviews, right, we use face recognition, we use voice recognition, and all these are used to ensure ethical practices. And this is something that we actively communicate. In general, the use of AI in recruitment should never violate the privacy of job applicants. Employers need to ensure that they have obtained the necessary consent from job applicants before collecting and using any of their personal data. And most importantly, I think a common stand that I have always maintained, that while AI can automate many tasks in the recruitment process or any other process for that matter, it is important to have human oversight to ensure that these algorithms are working as intended and to continuously address any issues that may arise. Lastly, I think employers should hold themselves accountable for the use of AI in recruitment or any other process and should take responsibility in case there are any negative consequences that arise from using AI. So it's only by ensuring that we hold ourselves accountable and we clearly communicate the use of AI is the only way we can, make sure that there is transparency in the entire recruitment process wherever AI is being used.
How to ensure the privacy and security of candidate data when deploying AI-driven recruitment technologies.
Actually, data privacy is fairly straightforward to achieve, provided there are checks and balances at the training stage. But let's first understand, what does data privacy mean in the context of AI. So data privacy means that the characteristics of training data, which are used to train the model, such as age, gender, income levels, etc., they're all completely separated from the actual identity of the person, such as their name and address, which means basically that there should be no way for the machine learning model to associate a name with an income level, for instance. And technically speaking, the separation of personal data from the data characteristics happens at the data pipelining stage, which actually begins when raw data is brought in from different sources. And then it goes through the usual stages of filtering, cleaning, filling up empty data, etc. The main point here being that whether you're developing your own AI models or you're using third party pre built models, the training data that you feed that model completely governs the privacy of those whose data is being used. And to execute this, a standard operating procedure has to be set up. So basically, there should be a governing body, right, whose approval should be required before the final data, which is attained at the end of the pipelining process that I just mentioned, is passed on to the training models. And companies can ensure this. A lot of companies are actively ensuring this by setting up governing bodies in place and having procedures in place which make sure that it's only clean, filtered, unassociated data that is then passed on to the training models.
How should the human element integrate within the organization's AI-based recruitment process to ensure ethical considerations are addressed?
Ever since AI has been in existence, this is one aspect which has always been a bone of contention between various factions of tech enthusiasts. So, different schools of thought believe in different levels of autonomy for AI. But when it comes to business scenarios such as recruitment, my point of view has always been to err on the side of caution. Basically, I have always maintained that human supervision is extremely critical, because no matter what we are made to believe, these are still childhood days for AI. Now, at the same time, I don't believe in a Terminator Skynet kind of situation, right? But speaking purely from first principles, AI is just another computer program. It's a very special kind of program, no doubt, but still basically a piece of software, which means the creators and the users of that software should always be in charge. And also, what is universally true for any program holds true for AI also, which is garbage in, garbage out. Which means whatever you use to train a machine learning model will eventually become the basis for all the predictions of that model. What that means is human intervention is necessary at both the stages, before the model gets trained and after the model has predicted. Basically, human supervision to make sure that as much as possible we are feeding unbiased data to train the model, and once predictions are made by the models, humans should review these predictions and apply filters of their own domain knowledge, their own awareness of situations, and their own worldview. In the world of recruitment, for example, when AI is used to auto generate email sequences, for example, for target candidates, the recruiter should add his or her own points to it and make sure that any biases that have crept in are removed. Similarly, when LLMs like ChatGPT, etc., are used to compare a resume with a job description, the recruiter should apply their own experience to arrive at the final conclusion, with respect to that candidate, instead of blindly going by whatever the ChatGPT model is churning out. I think this combination of humans and AI is the only way we can make sure that ethical considerations are met and that the final conclusion, whosoever is looking at the data or the prediction, final conclusion will be range bound only when there is supervision at the beginning and at the end of the training and the testing cycle.
What training and awareness programs do companies need to have in place for their recruitment teams to stay abreast of ethical considerations in AI recruitment?
A common and somewhat alarming trend, which I've observed in the last year or so, especially since ChatGPT, Bard, etc., have started becoming popular, is that of people accepting the responses of these LLMs as the absolute truth. Now, it could be the conversational style of the responses, it could be the overall habit that people have of believing anything and everything on the internet. But all in all, this combination can lead to people making biased decisions. So, what kind of training can help here, especially in a business context? I think if companies were to create an ethical AI kind of training curriculum, then the first course, or rather the first few courses, have to be on educating people about some fundamentals of machine learning. Now, this does not mean forcing everyone to go through the maths of ML models, but just creating awareness of how these models, especially LLMs, how do they respond to questions? Why do answers change when maybe the same questions is asked, but with slightly modified prompt? At least the basic stuff, right? Like what is model training? What is prediction? What is training sets? What are test sets? Things like these, right? And then once this part becomes clear, then the curriculum can segue into the pitfalls of AI or what makes AI misbehave. And at this point, some clarity should start appearing with respect to ethical considerations and the potential dangers of blindly believing in AI responses. I think the final aspect of this training would then be the specific ethical aspects with respect to the industry and the use cases. So here in VBeyond, for example, we are talking about recruitment. So training here covers potential pitfalls of AI for all use cases in the recruitment world, like generation of job descriptions, or candidate comparison, or auto generation of email sequences, etc. In summary, I think given the huge penetration that AI now has in our work lives, I very strongly believe that such a training curriculum should definitely be on the radar of all L&D practitioners out there.